I trusted her more than I should have. That's what keeps ringing in my head, even now. I was unconscious for nearly 2 days after the crash, and when I woke up in that hospital bed with tubes in my arms and a neck brace holding me still, the first person I saw standing there wasn't my daughter. It was my mother-in-law, Patricia. She looked down at me with that familiar tight-lipped smile, the one she always wore when pretending to care. "Don't worry about a thing, sweetheart," she'd said, brushing a strand of hair from my forehead. "You just rest. I've got Emma. I've got the house. I'll even handle the bills until you're back on your feet." 3 weeks. That's how long I was out of commission. Between surgery, physical therapy, and being confined to a hospital bed, I couldn't do much more than sign whatever paperwork Patricia brought in. I remember thinking how lucky I was to have someone step up when I needed it most. Emma, my daughter, was only 15. She was terrified, but Patricia kept her fed, clothed, and in school. And for that, I was grateful. Or at least I thought I was. When I finally came home, it was late afternoon. The place looked spotless, which should have been my first red flag. Patricia never cleaned, not even her own house. Emma ran into my arms the moment I stepped through the door, and I cried, because all that mattered then was being alive and seeing her again. I spent the next few days relearning how to exist in my own life. My body ached constantly, and I couldn't sit or stand without wincing. Patricia stayed longer than I expected. She cooked dinners, helped Emma with homework, and insisted I shouldn't worry about the small stuff. But I started noticing things, little things at first, like how the mail was already opened before I got to it, or how the password to my online banking had been changed. When I asked Patricia, she waved it off like it was nothing. "Oh, I must have typed it in wrong and locked the account. I'll fix it." She never did. By the end of the second week home, I was strong enough to sit at my desk with a laptop. I hadn't touched our finances in over a month, and it was long overdue. I opened the bank app and froze. Our savings account, Emma's college fund, was nearly empty. 28,000, gone. I blinked, thinking I'd logged into the wrong account. But it was the right one. Our joint college savings account, built over a decade, drained down to $3,200. The transaction history was short and brutal, a series of emergency transfers to another personal account. The recipient's name was hidden under account masking, but I didn't need a name. I knew exactly who had done it. That night at dinner, I asked casually, "Hey Patricia, did we have some sort of unexpected tuition payment this month?" She didn't flinch. She was good at that. Her fork paused over her plate and she said, "Oh no, nothing like that. Maybe the bank made a mistake. You know those online systems, always glitchy." I smiled. I didn't argue. I didn't even press her. I just nodded and let it go. Because that's when I knew for certain. Patricia thought I was weak. She thought the hospital, the meds, the recovery had dulled me. She didn't realize that before I became a full-time mom, I'd spent nearly a decade as a tax auditor for the Massachusetts Department of Revenue. Numbers are my language. Paper trails are my playground. And if she wanted to steal from my daughter from me while I was lying broken in a hospital bed, then she was about to find out exactly how much I remembered from my old job. The next morning, I started digging, quietly, systematically. Every cent, every transfer, every fingerprint she left behind, I collected it all. I started with the bank statements. Every transfer Patricia made had a timestamp. I cross-referenced those with the dates I was in the hospital when she had full control of our household. The money didn't vanish all at once. She was careful, strategic. A few thousand here, a few hundred there. Sometimes labeled medical reimbursement, other times as temporary hold. All cleverly vague. All done without my consent. Next came the credit card records. Charges for jewelry stores I'd never stepped foot in. Spa visits at a boutique place in Cape Cod. A weekend hotel booking under her name, during a time she told me she'd been staying with Emma. And then came the receipts she hadn't even bothered to hide. Folded in the back pocket of an old purse she left on our kitchen counter, one for a $1,200 handbag and another for a high-end facial treatment. Both paid in cash. That cash had come from my daughter's future. I should have been angry, furious, but what I felt instead was cold, focused. Patricia hadn't just stolen money, she'd betrayed every ounce of trust I had left in her, And if I knew anything from my days auditing, it was this. People like Patricia always had more to lose than they let on. So I went deeper. I remembered something she'd once bragged about years ago during a family dinner, half drunk on Chardonnay. I rent out the basement on Airbnb sometimes. It pays better than my pension. That little nugget stuck with me. I pulled up the site, created a dummy guest account, and sure enough, there she was, under a pseudonym, hosting the same cozy garden-level suite in Newton. Her calendar was full, her reviews were glowing, but I knew she'd never reported a dime of that income. I dug into public property records next. Patricia had purchased a second condo in Brighton 2 years ago, something she claimed was just a weekend place for friends. But when I checked rental platforms, it popped up again. She'd been earning thousands off that property, all under the radar. No business license, no tax filings. The picture was getting clearer. Patricia hadn't just dipped into Emma's college fund because she needed the money. She dipped into it because she thought she could get away with it. Because she'd been getting away with things for years. I didn't confront her. I didn't tell Emma. I didn't even tell my closest friend. Instead, I started building a full dossier. Downloaded every Airbnb transaction I could find, tracked property taxes, compared reported income on her previous tax filings, thanks to public court records I had access to, and compared it with the real figures I was compiling. It was a mess. She'd underreported tens of thousands, year after year. She was living a lie, funding it with tax evasion and family deception. And that's when I remembered something important. There's a program at the IRS, the whistleblower office. If you provide actionable evidence of tax fraud, and it results in the government recovering money, you get a percentage of the recovery. Sometimes 15%, sometimes 30%. And Patricia? She'd been underreporting for so long, the IRS was going to have a field day. So I did what any ex-tax auditor with a bone to pick would do. I printed out everything, made copies, burned them to a USB. I filed the form with the IRS, completely anonymous, attached the evidence packet, and submitted it under Whistleblower Code Section 7623B. I knew how long it might take. I also knew it would be thorough. Then I waited. I smiled at her fake kindness at breakfast. I nodded when she offered to help with bills again. I watched her pour herself wine on Sunday nights while bragging to my daughter about how someday she might take her to Paris. She had no idea her past was about to catch up to her. And I didn't need to raise my voice. I just needed to be patient. Because karma was finally on a schedule. And this time, it was IRS certified. 3 months later, the letter came. Plain white envelope, government seal in the corner, no return address. I knew what it was before I opened it. My hands didn't even shake. I sat at the kitchen table, sunlight spilling across the wood, and slid my finger under the flap. Inside was a formal acknowledgement from the IRS whistleblower office. They had opened an investigation. My evidence had been reviewed, deemed credible, and forwarded for enforcement action. The letter didn't say much, just confirmation of the process and that I might be eligible for compensation depending on the outcome. But I didn't need details. I'd written hundreds of those same letters in my previous life. This was real. And Patricia, she was in the living room at that exact moment, watching a true crime documentary and sipping a $9 bottle of wine like she was the heroine of her own little suburban fantasy. The irony made me smile. The next weeks were filled with tension, not for me, but for her. I started noticing changes, calls from strange numbers that made her go pale. A panicked meeting with a friend who just happened to be an accountant. A day where she sat outside for hours, smoking, a habit she'd given up 10 years ago. Then came the big one. She received a certified letter. The envelope was thick. Her hands trembled as she signed for it. I watched from the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest, but not from fear, from the cold satisfaction of justice turning its wheels. She opened the envelope at the kitchen counter, her lips pressed into a tight line as she scanned the first page. I could see the heading from where I stood, Notice of Tax Audit, 10-year review period. Her face drained of color. That night, she barely ate, didn't speak. When Emma asked if Grandma was okay, I said gently, "She's just got a lot on her plate right now." Which wasn't a lie. Over the next few days, I pieced together what the IRS had uncovered through her phone calls. loud ones she didn't realize I could overhear from the upstairs landing. They were auditing not just her current filings, but everything going back a full decade. That included the Airbnb rentals, the unreported cash from the Brighton condo, and even a bogus non-profit donation she claimed 3 years in a row, one I'd already proven didn't exist. She was screwed. And the best part? Emma's college fund, the one she drained, was nothing compared to what she owed. The back taxes, interest, and penalties alone were going to hit 6 figures. Possibly more. 2 weeks later, I received another letter. This time, it was a preliminary estimate of the whistleblower award. Based on the current findings and expected collection, I was slated to receive a $105,000 payout once the process completed. I stared at that number, stunned. It was more than triple what she stole from Emma. More than I ever expected. I felt my throat tighten, not from greed or revenge, but from relief. Emma's future was safe again, and I hadn't had to scream, accuse, or plead. I just followed the truth, let it do the talking. Still, I wasn't done. Thanksgiving was approaching, and as always, Patricia insisted we have dinner at our house. Family should stick together, she said one morning, as if she hadn't gutted ours with a fake smile and a stolen password. Fine, I told her. Let's do it. I cooked the turkey myself. Mashed potatoes, green bean casserole, even made Emma's favorite cornbread stuffing. Patricia showed up in pearls and perfume, acting like nothing had happened. She complimented the food, laughed too loud at Emma's jokes, and even had the audacity to raise a toast. To family and surviving hard times together. I waited until dessert. The room was warm, full of cinnamon and candlelight, plates half finished, everyone content. Patricia reached for another slice of pie when I slid the manila envelope across the table. She blinked. What's this? I smiled. A little something I thought the family might want to read, since you're so big on transparency. Emma looked confused. Patricia hesitated, then opened it. Inside was a printed copy of the IRS's investigation summary, every detail, every dollar, every year. Her jaw clenched as she flipped through the pages. What is this? She whispered. I leaned back, my voice calm. It's everything they found. Everything you didn't report. Thought you'd like to see it before the rest of the world does. For the first time in her life, Patricia was speechless. Emma glanced at me, then back at her grandmother. Mom, what's going on? Patricia looked down, her hands trembling. She didn't answer, and I didn't push. I just picked up my fork, took a bite of pumpkin pie, and said, Pass the whipped cream, would you? The silence at that table was louder than any argument I could have started. The fallout began quietly. That night, Patricia left without saying goodbye. No hugs for Emma, no thank you for dinner, just gathered her coat with shaky hands and slipped out the front door like a ghost. The next morning, she didn't call. No text. No check-in. Emma asked if Grandma was mad about something. I told her the truth, as much as she needed to hear. Grandma made a mistake, I said gently. A big one. And sometimes when people get caught doing the wrong thing, they don't know how to face the people they hurt. Emma was quiet for a long time. Will she go to jail? I hesitated. I don't know. That's up to people whose job it is to figure that out. In the weeks that followed, Patricia's carefully curated life began to unravel. Her Brighton condo, listed for sale, fast. Probably trying to liquidate assets. Her basement, Airbnb, shut down. The listing vanished overnight. I found out from a former colleague at the Department of Revenue, off the record, that Patricia was being investigated not only for tax fraud, but also for willfully concealing income and misusing family accounts. Apparently, the IRS had shared parts of their findings with state authorities. That could mean more than fines. That could mean prosecution. Still, I didn't revel in her misery. Not outwardly. There were days I caught myself staring out the window, wondering how someone could betray their own granddaughter for spa days and handbags. Wondering how long she'd been like this. Had it started with small things, taking a little here and there when no one was watching? Or had she always seen people as tools, just waiting to be used? I stopped trying to answer those questions. Instead, I focused on what I could control. I met with a financial advisor, set up a new education account for Emma, this time solely under my name with multi-step authentication. I funneled every cent of the IRS reward into that account, along with some of my own savings. The interest alone would be enough to carry her through her undergrad years, maybe even a master's if she wanted. Emma didn't know the details, but she knew something had changed. She hugged me one night, out of the blue, and said, "Thanks for always making me feel safe, Mom." That nearly broke me. A week before Christmas, I received a letter from Patricia. Handwritten, shaky cursive. It wasn't an apology. Not really. It was 5 paragraphs of deflection about how she never meant to cause harm, how she was only trying to help during a difficult time, how I had misunderstood her intentions. The final line read, "Families shouldn't destroy each other over a little money." I folded the letter in half and slid it into a drawer. Never replied, because it wasn't about money. It was about trust. And some bridges once burned aren't worth rebuilding. Still, the universe has a strange sense of timing. 2 days before New Year's, I got a call from an unknown number. I almost didn't answer, but something told me to pick up. It was a woman from the IRS whistleblower office. "Miss Thompson, we wanted to inform you that the case has been closed. Funds have been recovered, and your portion has been finalized." She paused. "I just wanted to say, we don't often see submissions this thorough. Whoever you are, you should know, you helped bring down one of the most evasive mid-scale fraud cases we've had in this region in years." I thanked her and hung up, the weight of it all sinking in. Patricia would face consequences. Maybe not behind bars, but certainly in her bank accounts, in her reputation, in her relationships. She'd always wanted control. Now all she had was damage. And me? I had my daughter. I had peace. And I had proof that sometimes the quietest form of revenge is simply telling the truth and letting it do the work. Winter passed, and with it, the last remnants of any illusion Patricia had tried to maintain. She didn't come around for Emma's birthday in February, didn't send a card or call. Emma noticed, of course. She asked once, then never brought it up again. Maybe she sensed there was more going on than I'd told her. Kids know more than we give them credit for. By spring, word had spread through our extended family. Patricia's older sister called me one morning, her voice brittle. "Sarah, I don't want to get involved, but I heard some things about the IRS, about Patty." I didn't deny it. I didn't explain either. "I'm just doing what's best for Emma," I said. There was a long pause. Then quietly, "Good. Someone needed to." It turned out Patricia had borrowed money from more than just my daughter's college fund. She'd taken out a private loan against her own retirement account and failed to repay it. Missed mortgage payments on the Brighton condo. She was unraveling at every seam. I saw her once in April by accident. Emma and I were at the farmer's market picking up fresh strawberries when I spotted her across the square. She looked thinner, paler. Her makeup couldn't hide the lines around her eyes or the stiffness in her posture. She was alone, holding a reusable bag like she didn't know what to do with it. Our eyes met for just a second. She flinched. Emma didn't see her, and I didn't say anything. I just took her hand and led her toward the bakery stand. There was nothing left to say. By summer, life had found a new rhythm. Emma finished her junior year with straight A's and started researching colleges. She was leaning toward environmental science, something she said she wanted to study after reading a book about climate change. I told her she could be anything she wanted. That money wouldn't be a problem. She didn't ask why. She just smiled and hugged me. In August, I used a portion of the reward money to create something that felt bigger than just revenge. I set up a small educational grant in her father's name, the David Thompson Memorial Fund. Just a few thousand to start, but enough to help other girls like Emma, girls with dreams and drive and no safety net. That felt good. Not like vengeance, like healing. Then, in early September, I got a certified letter. Again, this one was from Patricia's lawyer. It wasn't a lawsuit, it was a settlement offer. Patricia was willing to sign an affidavit admitting to unauthorized withdrawals from Emma's college fund in exchange for a confidentiality agreement. She didn't want the IRS report to be public. Didn't want her name attached to anything that could follow her for the rest of her life. There was a time I might have agreed, might have taken the moral high road, signed the paper, and put it all behind me. But I wasn't that person anymore. I called her lawyer and said simply, "Tell Patricia I already got what I came for, and I'm not in the habit of protecting liars." Then I hung up. That night, I poured a glass of wine, stepped onto the back porch, and listened to the crickets hum in the yard. Emma was upstairs packing for a school trip to D.C., humming along to whatever song was playing in her earbuds. The stars were clear, the air was warm, and for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I was surviving. I felt like I was living. Fall came, and with it college application season. Emma was all in, visiting campuses, writing essays, meeting with guidance counselors. Watching her light up when she talked about dorm life or research programs made everything feel worth it. Every long night, every painful truth, every quiet act of justice. One Saturday in October, we were walking back to the car after a tour at Tufts when Emma asked, "Mom, how come you never worry about the money?" I paused. She wasn't asking like a kid anymore. She was asking like a young adult who'd started to notice the world didn't always add up the way you want it to. I thought about lying, about giving her the usual parent line. "Don't worry about that, honey." But she deserved better, so I told her, carefully. "I used to worry, a lot, but then something happened that made sure you'd be okay, that your future wouldn't be something we had to gamble on." She frowned. "What happened?" "Someone tried to take something from us," I said, "and I stopped them." She studied me, quiet, as we reached the car. "Was it Grandma?" I met her eyes. It wasn't a question. It was confirmation. I nodded once. "Yeah." Emma didn't say anything for a moment. She looked out the window as we drove, then finally whispered, "I think I already knew." Her voice didn't crack. It didn't tremble. She was strong, stronger than I'd ever realized. "Thank you for not telling me sooner," she added. "I don't think I was ready." I reached over and squeezed her hand. "You are now." The following month, Patricia's name appeared, quietly and perhaps unintentionally, in a local news article about tax evasion cases and increased IRS enforcement. Just a short paragraph. No mugshot. No drama, but it was there. I clipped it and saved it in a folder, not because I needed proof, but because I needed closure. On Thanksgiving, just 1 year after everything began, it was just the two of us. I roasted a small chicken instead of a turkey, baked Emma's favorite apple crisp, and set the table with mismatched plates we'd picked up at a vintage shop. No drama, no pretense, no speeches, just quiet, peaceful gratitude. Halfway through dinner, Emma looked up and said, "If I ever have kids, I want them to grow up in a house like this." I smiled. "What kind of house is that?" She shrugged. "One where the truth matters, and where people don't pretend things are fine when they're not." I sat there, blinking back tears. Because she didn't just see me, she understood me. And that, more than any payout or revenge or legal win, was the victory I never saw coming. It's been nearly 18 months now. Patricia moved out of state shortly after the IRS finalized the penalties. Rumor has it she sold the Brighton condo at a loss, settled her back taxes with a combination of emergency loans and whatever was left of her retirement fund. I don't know for sure. I didn't follow the details. I didn't need to. Because by then, she'd already become a ghost in our lives. Emma was accepted into her top choice, University of Washington. Full tuition, housing, meal plan, paid for in full. Not by Patricia. Not by loans, but by a reward that never should have existed in the first place. I helped her move into her dorm, unpacked boxes with her name scrawled in Sharpie, made her bed like I used to when she was 7. Before I left, she hugged me long and hard and whispered, "I hope one day I can be as strong as you." I told her the truth. "You already are." That night, I walked back to my car and sat behind the wheel for 10 minutes before starting the engine. Not because I was sad, but because the silence felt full, whole. And that's when I realized something. We're told sometimes that forgiveness is the highest road, that we should mend fences, keep the peace, be the bigger person. But here's what I've learned. Forgiveness isn't owed, trust isn't automatic, and peace isn't something you keep. It's something you build. I didn't get revenge by ruining Patricia's life. I got it by refusing to let her ruin mine. I didn't scream, I didn't beg, I didn't burn anything down. I just followed the numbers, found the truth, and let the system do what it was designed to do. And in the end, the most powerful thing I ever did was choose to protect my daughter's future, even when the threat came from inside our own family. So no, I don't regret a single page of that report. And if I could go back and do it all again, I'd do it faster, because surviving is quiet, but rebuilding, on your terms with your integrity intact, is the loudest form of justice there is. And that's how I learned that keeping calm isn't weakness, it's strategy. Has something like this ever happened to you? Have you ever had to get justice without saying a word? Share your story in the comments. We read every one. Like this story? Subscribe to EN Reddit Story for more real-life revenge tales. And send this to a friend who always plays the long game.